Hello, everyone. I'm Matthew Allen, and welcome back to the What a Thought podcast, episode 40. Oh, my words. Oh, does that make me feel old? Does that make others feel old? It doesn't make anyone feel old, but it has been going for a long time, which, a pat on the back for that. There's a part of me that didn't know how long it would be going for, didn't know if people would be listening. I know some people that do. They talk to me about it, and I think that's fun. It's nice to know that there are people out there that are, genuinely taking the time out of their day to listen to this. 40 episodes doesn't sound like a lot, but when it comes to how these are being released, especially since starting What a Book, and they're every other week, that's about two a month. It's really a lot. I'm glad to be doing it. I'm always happy to come in. It's like checking in, It's the equivalent of me doing a vlog, but I don't like my face. But yeah. So that's kind of crazy to think about. We've made it all the way to episode 40. Had the opportunity to see Black Adam finally. There hasn't been a lot of time in my existence doing the things that I do, so I've kind of just had to carve the time wherever I can. But yeah, saw Black Adam. I had a blast. I won't even lie. Some of the DC projects I really don't like that much. I haven't had much fun with them. But Black Adam was different. I think Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson finally has had the opportunity to play the character that he's been trying to play for over a decade. There, reports and articles all the way back to 2007 that they were trying to get Dwayne Johnson to sign on and play Black Adam, and then it's Dwayne Johnson signed on, and then the universe they were creating fell apart after Green Lantern was bad. And it's is Dwayne Johnson still on board? And then it was Dwayne Johnson's still on board, but we don't have a writer, we have a writer, we don't have a director. We have a director now. The movie's being made, but it's going to come out in 4 years or whatever. And then it finally came out. I don't know how it did at the box office comparative to its budget. I just kind of have to assume in part that it did well. But yeah, I watched it. It was a good time. I had some notes. I had some issues. There were 2 points. There's a character in there. He's a young boy. I don't know his name, but by young I mean he's at least a teen, like a young teen. And I watched it with friends of mine, and we discussed immediately they're doing the Shazam thing, where it's young boy is greeted by what is essentially a hero to people like him, and he has all these questions and he's fascinated, but in this instance, Black Adam just doesn't care for this child yet. But that kid presented 2 wonderfully beautiful moments in the movie of being berated by me and my friend of the channel, Luke Ritchie. Go check out the co-op summer from this past summer. You can catch him playing Gears of War 2 with me. But this child, obviously you've stated, he's an older teen, he skateboards around, he lives in Kahndaq. Now, for people that don't know, comic stuff, Kahndaq is the city that Black Adam rules and protects. He kind of keeps it hidden from the world the way that the Themyscira is hidden from the world. That's where Wonder Woman's from. And they kind of live their life like it's still old, Egypt times, which is fine for them because they're thriving. They're thriving in what they do. In the movie, they made it so that Black Adam was locked up, he disappeared, and Kahndaq has spent hundreds of years just consistently being invaded by foreigners and being under military occupation, and yeah. And that's how they've been living, right? So this kid, right, is fascinated with superheroes, just greatly living for Black Adam being here, right? Has lived his whole life under military rule. And he says it. He acknowledges it. And then he does some of the stupidest things we've ever seen, right? First off, he goes and purposely picks a fight with military people to get Black Adam to come and save him and start liberating the people, which is all fine and dandy, but also it's the most dangerous thing a child could ever do. What in the world? Can you imagine If a child who's lived their whole life under military occupation was to suddenly be like, let me go anger this person and hope that this demigod comes and saves me. Because Black Adam doesn't step until the last minute. Like, the kid is about to get himself murked and his mother captured. Right? And I'm like, why would you do that? Like, what if he didn't step in? He's told you multiple times, like, he literally burst through walls of your apartment. Like, what's wrong with you? And then there's a point where the obvious turncoat from the beginning of the movie is, you know, obviously revealed as turncoat, you know? And it's very obvious to me, as a person who studies films and makes films, and it's very obvious to Luke, but it's not obvious to this kid, and he just keeps talking to his uncle. And he's like, whoa, I thought you were dead, blah, blah, blah. Like, and the uncle's like, yeah, I know, thought so, you should go to your mom. And he's like, why would I do that? My mom sent me here to make sure the crown is safe, right? And it's like, hey, kid, if your uncle is talking to you in this very weird tone, and you live under military occupation, and you literally just escaped from a bunch of superheroes and people with guns, and now here's this dude who was 100% you were told was dead, is suddenly alive, why would you keep talking the way you're talking? And it's like, oh, look, your uncle's been shot in the gut now because you are stupid. It's like, you can't be this, like, adamant about knowing that you're doing the right thing and also be this stupid. Like, what is the age of this child? And then they send a bunch of military dudes to chase after him, and I was like, hey, I'm sorry, but he's running down one of them staircases, you know, the kind where it's like built on the edges of the building, so there's just a big center of nothing, right? Where there's not even support columns, because if you go to the top, it's just open, so they don't need support columns. It's just empty in the center, right? So there's a bunch of military dudes on one section of the stairwell running down at him, another running up, and he's just like in the middle. And I literally out loud went, hey, we shouldn't kill kids, but can one of you fire your gun at this kid? 10 military dudes, I don't know how many there were, but there was a lot. Like 10 military dudes, we'll say, chasing down this child in this open stairwell where there's no one else right now for some reason. It's not explained where the rest of the occupants are. But, like, no one takes a shot at him. Not a single person. It's like, hey, dude, someone shoot him. Please? Like, what is happening? Why is this kid doing this? And, like, he's just, like, that child and some of the sequences with him just really, really miffed me. Now, there were some pretty funny moments. I won't deny that. And I did enjoy the movie, and I'm kind of excited to see what James Gunn has in store for Black Adam after this. I also know that, spoiler alert, this movie saw the return of Henry Cavill as Superman, something that I think no one thought was going to happen, and I'm kind of glad that it did. I have received a text. I feel bad that I paused so hard. But yeah, like, the movie was fun. It was a good time. Obviously, it suffered from the same thing we do to, like, all the Marvel stuff, you know? It's like, oh, here's a quippy joke that doesn't really fit in with what we were doing, but oh well. And it's like, no, don't oh well me. Like, this isn't the place for this type of joke. But then there were other moments where they had those types of jokes, and they were pretty solidly funny. But it's a good time. Go watch it. You know, have fun with it. Just gotta turn off your disbelief and stuff. That's all you gotta do. Also had the chance to rewatch Hellboy, which, great film. Guillermo del Toro, came out in 2004. You can kind of see that in some aspects of the CGI when there is CGI, but other than that, it's still a solid film. Ron Perlman as Hellboy is still a legend. Sorry to David Harbour. If Hellboy 2019 had been better, maybe we would have two cool Hellboys. But so far, in my book, we just have one, which is fine. Because Ron Perlman is killing it in that movie. I love him as Hellboy. I love Doug Jones as Abe Sapien. Selma Blair as Liz. I enjoy John Myers. I forget his name. I think it's like Evan Rupert Evan. One of those two directions as a what is the word? Audience, an audience surrogate, audience insert character, audience surrogate character, one of those sets of words. Which, if you don't know what that means, an audience surrogate character is a character whose sole purpose in the movie is to be new and inexperienced to the things that are going on, if it's something that isn't like common knowledge. So in this instance, the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense, or whatever it is that they're called, that runs Hellboy to have him go solve paranormal things, isn't a real thing. So obviously, it's from the comics that Hellboy's from. You've got to have someone who can step in and be given this information in a manner that makes it useful for you, the audience member, to also learn it without it just being an exposition dump. Because the last thing you want is for someone to go and give all the information, and then they have someone else who's like, why are you telling him all that? Like, this isn't his first day. Like, then you're like, oh, they did this for the audience. So instead, some filmmakers will build a character whose whole existence is to be informed and learn and slowly get to, like, unravel this information so that it happens in a natural manner. That way the audience will get it in a way that doesn't make them feel like the director or the writer didn't think they'd be able to get this information on their own. And John Myers is one of the best examples of that. Obviously, there's tons and tons of audience surrogate characters throughout movie and film history. He's one of the better ones. I know I discussed with a friend about him because we were comparing him to Cole from the Mortal Kombat movie, who is also an audience surrogate character, so that audience members that don't know the Mortal Kombat games could be filled in on information. But he's written so weirdly, and he doesn't exist in the game, so he kind of like alienated people, because who wanted that? No one wanted Cole. No offense to that actor. He does a great job at playing the character that he's playing, but Cole as a character is not a good audience surrogate because he's being inserted into a space where there are already characters who are audience surrogates within the game. The biggest selling point being... Selling point? No. The biggest talking point of that idea of an audience surrogate character being Johnny Cage. For those who don't know Mortal Kombat, I will briefly run it down. Big tournament, fight to the death. If the people of Earthrealm win, then Outworld doesn't get to invade Earth. But if the people of Outworld win, they get to invade Earth and make it part of their planet. That's it. Johnny Cage, fighter for Earthrealm, is a actor of action movies. So he knows how to fight, but he uses it to do bad action movies. And when he is summoned into the tournament, he thinks it's just a movie. He's like, okay, I'm on a movie set. Like, there are probably secret cameras somewhere. That's why these people look so weird. Because there are non-humanoid creatures fighting on Outworld's side. So he's like, yeah, okay, cool. I'll do my thing. And then as time goes on, and he's like, whoa, that dude really has claws in his arms. And that guy's really a lizard. He learns the information that explains to him what is happening in this tournament and allows him to not die. Johnny Cage is yet to die. And with that information, he's able to succeed and do the things he needs to do. And you as the audience get to learn more about the tournament and about the other characters and such through him, because he learns this information and then you get to learn that information. And in all fairness, technically Sonya also is like that. Jax is also like that. They're both there hunting Kano, who is another human, and then they end up as a part of the tournament. Like, there's so many characters that don't know the tournament that end up in the tournament that you could have used as the audience surrogate without making a new character. But they made a new character and they gave him a weird backstory as being the descendant of Scorpion, who is a demon ninja man who used to be a human ninja man that was murdered by a cold ninja man. That's the simplistic form of going through Mortal Kombat lore. But he's not a good audience surrogate, and it's kind of sad because you kind of want there to be a good audience surrogate because you want people to be able to get into Mortal Kombat and understand it, but they did it poorly. And it's really goofy because the 90s Mortal Kombat movie by Paul W.S. Anderson used Johnny Cage in this fashion. They used him as the audience surrogate. When he is recruited for the tournament, he is told by his agent that this is you've been given a new contract for a new movie. It's shooting on location. You got to go to this island. Blah 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 blah. Turns out it's Shang Tsung recruiting fighters for Earthrealm. But just like that, Johnny is immediately tossed into the dark. He thinks he's on a movie set, and then he's greeted with a fight to the death. And that's all you need. That's all it takes. We did that so well. Like, why couldn't we do that in this movie? But no. So yeah, so John Myers he's a solid example of a character created specifically for like an adaptation of something. And that's usually where they come in. I should have prefaced that at the beginning of the spiel about audience surrogate characters for you guys. Those characters are usually created specifically for that adaptation. Usually if something is being adapted, like if it's a video game, a comic book, a novel, those characters' whole existence is let's fill in the audience because there's something convoluted or complicated that's here in this thing, right? So usually they're your main character. If they're not your main character, then they're pretty close to being the main character like John is. Another example off the top of the head is Ryan Reynolds' character in R.I.P.D. R.I.P.D. didn't do well. I like the movie. But he's another audience surrogate because he has no idea what the R.I.P.D. is. He doesn't know that there are ghosts and demons that walk the earth until he dies. He dies, he's recruited by the R.I.P.D. They have to explain all this information to him. He has to learn what he can and can't do as a now dead person. And that's just... And then from there, he learns more, and he's the hero of the story. He's one of two. It's him and Jeff Bridges? So, like, that's it. Those are the two things. Like, that's all he needs to do. He's like, okay, cool, I'm dead now. I'm gonna go fight, like, demons, like a police officer, and arrest them, and bring them into jail, and do my job. But instead, on Earth, I look like what did he look like? Was he an old Asian man or was he the Girl Scout? I can't remember. But that's another example of an audience surrogate. John Carter and John Carter, which, bad name for that movie. Who's going to go watch a movie like that with a title like that? Anywho, he's also an audience surrogate. He doesn't know about the Mars colony world, whatever you want to call it, sci-fi. You know, there's tons of thousands of audience surrogate characters. Harry Potter is an audience surrogate. As he learns information because he doesn't know anything about the Wizarding World, we learn information because he doesn't know anything about the Wizarding World, and neither do we. You know, Katniss Everdeen is not an audience surrogate because she grew up with the Hunger Games. She knows the Hunger Games. She knows everything about it. You know, the only thing she doesn't know is about the, like, getting sponsors part. But besides that, she's not an audience surrogate because she knows everything. She doesn't need things explained to her. I'm trying to think of a couple others off the top of my head. I'm just kind of spitballing audience surrogates, but I can't think of another one right now. If you've got any other audience surrogates that you can think of, leave them down in the comments. I'm curious to know. I would love to talk on whatever movie those audience surrogates are from, or even, like, discuss if they're good audience surrogates or not. Because if the audience surrogate isn't good at getting information, like, if they can't get information that is then given to you, how are you can't use them in that fashion then. That's not what they're doing. They're not an audience surrogate. They're just a character, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah. I didn't realize I was going to go on a tangent about audience surrogates, but it's fun information to have. I like getting to discuss things like that. That's the whole point of this podcast. If more people left things for me to talk about, I'd talk about those. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. The semester is ending soon. In fact, this is coming out on the first day of finals week, which is kind of crazy. But also not. I've finished 2 of them already. I've finished 3 of them already. I know how to count, I promise. They were almost back to back to back, but they weren't, thankfully. I had one on Monday last week, Wednesday last week, Thursday last week, and now I just have one due Wednesday this week, which is a paper, which in any other circumstance, I'd be like, okay, it's just a paper, that's fine. But this paper is worth 25% of my grade after doing 2 other papers for that same class throughout the semester that were both worth 15% of my grade, meaning 50% of my grade is comprised of 3 papers. And I don't know about you, But I personally think that is a horrible way to go about scaling your grading. I think putting so much emphasis on just specific things is terrible. I think it's detrimental. All that does is cause stress and kind of promotes failure if you're not good at the thing. Like my other class that I had, I'm leaving out what the names of these classes are in case somehow it gets back around. But I had a professor, and they had a weekly quiz. They had 3 exams. They had multiple papers. So like the impact that all of those things, like there was discussion post responses, like so the impact that all those things had on the grade was a little smaller. Like they still impacted it, but it wasn't to the point that if you failed one, like you just detrimentally decked yourself from being able to succeed. Whereas in comparison, when you do something like this, where it's like this paper's worth 15% of your grade, like if you fail that paper, it's now impossible for you to have an A in the class. You're forced to, the highest you can get is like a high B or like a regular B. You fail the other one, it's now impossible for you to get higher than a C in the class. Like that's two papers determining 16 weeks worth of like effort. That's insane. And then to have the other one worth 25. Oh wow! I just realized that's 55% of the grade. That's not 50%. It's 55%. That's even worse. Um, then having the other one be worth that amount. Like if you failed all 3 papers but did well on everything else, it wouldn't matter because then you failed the class. And I think that's insane. I think that's a terrible grading scale. I feel like that, and having seen the criteria because I'm in the class, running a class with that type of criteria and the way you're evaluating the work isn't really promoting growth. Like it's not promoting learning. It's promoting how well can you just redo the things that we've done here in a fashion that I will accept. And I've never liked that type of learning. I've always personally been a fan of being allowed to fail without the consequence because you can't improve if every failure leads to consequence because then you don't try things, which is especially crazy as a cinema student. You know, this is a cinema class, so being able to fail is kind of a necessity, even in applying theory, because if you apply it incorrectly, it shouldn't be like, okay, you were a failure at this, see ya. It should be, hey, this isn't really how we were applying this. I see that you applied it in a different fashion, and while that is a way to apply it, let's try and get you on the same track as everyone else. Let's try and get you rolling into the same thought process. That's what you got to do, and that's all it takes, you know? I'm upset with this class, if you can't tell. But it's finals week. I got to finish this paper. I'll do it because, by golly, I don't want to fail. I have 1 semester left, and if I have to add another class, I will lose it. I will lose it. But yeah, isn't that also insane? I have only a semester left, and then I graduate. For those that are curious, I dual enrolled in my last 2 years of high school. If you don't know what dual enrollment is, if your school offers it, it is essentially that there's a local community college that is allowing those students to take classes alongside their high school curriculum, and you get college credit for it. So I took a bunch of classes sophomore year, wrong one, junior year and senior year, and I ended up coming, and then I took a bunch of AP classes in the school and whatnot. So I came with enough college credits to essentially shave a year off of my learning, which is great. Because if you don't know, I hate school. I hate school with a burning passion. I've mentioned it before. Nothing fuels me into like more schooling. Nothing fuels me into completing my schooling more than the fact that if I was unbridledly upset with schools, I would maybe burn them all down. That's a joke. No one send the police after me. I'm not actually going to do that. But yeah, I don't like school. I've never liked school. But I understand the necessity for a degree. I know that there are places that look for degrees. There are jobs that look at degrees. Everything wants a degree. So because I am aware of that knowledge of those things that want degrees, I understand and know, okay, I need to go get a degree. which is what I've been doing. I've been getting my major in cinematography, filmmaking. That's my hopeful dream. I hope to be a writer. That would be cool. But I also understand that that's also not like a feasible thing sometimes, and that's okay too. But big old but with a capital B. I'm getting a minor in psychology because I understand that filmmaking is not the best thing. I understand that sometimes when you do something in the arts like that, the ability to actually go apply it is very, very low, which is okay. I understand that, which is why I'm minoring in psychology. That one's a little more practical. I could probably apply that in any fashion. I don't know if I'd be able to go do certain things, but maybe I can go be a guidance counselor at the very least. I think possibly I could go be a guidance counselor with my degree. I haven't taken a class to know if that's true or not. I'm just basing it off my own thoughts. But yeah, I don't like schools. Now, I don't like schooling. That's what I meant to say. Now, to any children or young adults that are out there listening, this isn't me stating to you, F school, don't go to school, whatnot. If you have the opportunity, go. Do it. Take it seriously. Understand, once you're out of the, K through 12 education system, that the opportunity to go to other schools usually costs a lot of money. And so if you squander that, it's going to be significantly more detrimental than just failing a class. It is going to cost you financially. So if you're going to go, you got to understand, this costs money, this takes time. Getting the education can lead you down a significantly better path, and sometimes it might not. It all really depends on what you're going to go get that education in. But you got to really stay focused. You really got to grind and continue on what you're doing, because you can do great things, And the experience isn't just let's go to school, You go, you make friends, It's where you might make the connections that are going to last you a long time. I've met a good handful of people here and within my studying for films that they make projects. They work on different aspects. Some of them direct, some of them act, some of them write. Some of them really like sound. I really like sound. And so those are the connections that this is the opportunity to make them. You don't really get that if you don't go somewhere where that's centralized. There was a TV production class in my high school, and I got to take it sophomore and senior year, but the people in those classes, they're not there to go make projects or whatnot. They're just there for their credit because it's high school. And while I met a few people that I made a couple projects with, that connection, it wasn't there. It didn't gel, it didn't stick. Some of them I know for a fact if I was gonna come back now and go back home to Florida and be like, hey, you want to come make a project, they would just kind of scoff, which is what it is. Part of that is my own fault, and part of that is the fault of others, and that's just how it be. But college allows you those opportunities to build those connections and really branch out. So, as much as I hate schools and schooling with a burning passion, I do understand the usefulness for the things that it provides, not just in education, but also in those connections, in building those paths forward, And which is why, I don't harp on the fact that it's finals week too hard, I understand that. It's finals week. Everyone knows that. All the colleges around the U.S. are in their finals week right now, unless they're doing a weird trimester thing where they're weird, or if they're full sail, because, dude, full sail is awful. As a human being from Florida, I can tell you full sail is awful. Even my professors up here that aren't from Florida know full sail is awful, which is hilarious to me. But yeah, go do your things. If you're in your finals week, good luck to you all. If you're not in finals week, I hope you're having a good day. And I think that's where I'm going to go ahead and leave it off. So thank you guys so much for joining me for What I Thought. If you liked it, make sure to leave a like and comment down below. Tell me other things you're hoping to hear me discuss here on the podcast, as well as reach out over on social media in case you don't want to leave it down in the comments. I am on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find both of those in the Linktree link, as well as the other YouTube channel where I play a video game every single day, The Soloist, and the Twitch, where I stream on weekends. So thank you guys again. I've been Matthew Allen. This has been the What a Thought podcast, and I will see all of you next week.